Hey everybody, welcome to another great episode of Content and Conversation. Today, I'm especially stoked to be welcoming two old school SEOs, link builders here, Joyce of Linkfish Media and Garrett French of ZipSprout and Citation Labs, two very respected link builders that run link building agencies services, just like us. And today we're going to be talking about old school link building. So welcome both. Excited to have you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Given we have esteemed, experienced guests in the SEO link building world, I figured we'd get to kind of the meat of things that are old school in terms of link building perspective, maybe a little, some people might say less done these days, but still effective in certain ways that both of you have great experience doing and know the ins and outs of, like things that were done 5 years ago or 10 years ago that now no one is doing, but still work. And one thing that especially I think in our conversations that is particularly of interest to me, I actually did a ton of this in the past, is the concept of link buying. There's a lot of people that did that. Almost everyone seemingly did link buying like 10 years ago. Now it might be a little less current, but for those that are doing it, potentially still effective. I know Julie, I think you do a good amount of that. Like, how effective is that today? How much of that is your process? And maybe you could just speak to link buying in particular.
Thank you for admitting you did it, first of all.
Yeah.
That's a very common thing that a lot of people don't want to talk about it. Right. I think it still works really well, but I think you have to be very smart about it. Whereas, say, 10 years ago, you could get away with buying, tons and tons of links for clients, and that might work. But today, I approach it as same way Garrett approaches what he does, really. Or a lot of people build links. So we go out, we try to find good sites that, we think this would be a link that we would click on. So my guys actually aren't using a lot of SEO. They're not thinking about metrics and things like that. They're just thinking, if I came across this page, would I click on this link?
Okay.
Or would I think this is a paid link and not click on it? So we try to approach things basically the same way I think everybody else does. We're not building like at a huge scale. Between the four of us, we build about 100, 125 links for about 10 clients.
Okay.
So it's nothing like the old days where we would have some clients where we would build like 75 links in a month. And they weren't really great links, especially looking back. Now we try to focus more on the quality of them. But it's working very well for our clients.
Do you think it makes sense and I don't know if this is the case with those clients, where if you're doing link buying, should it be a small, is there a right percentage of overall link profile that should be bought to de-risk that?
Right, that's a very good question. And usually we are part of a bigger team.
Okay.
So the two of us worked together on a big project
Clients
recently.
A lot. Okay.
Yes. So Garrett was doing some guest posting. I was doing the link buying. They were getting a lot of organic links. They had an in-house team. So lots of times we're working, sometimes I might be like 5% of someone's link effort.
Okay. So in practice, I'm just curious, if you don't mind revealing this, how do you float that with a potential prospect? Like, you're reaching out to a site to say, I potentially am willing to offer to buy a link from you.
Right.
Do you reveal the site up front? Are you revealing what you're willing to pay up front? What does that look like in practice?
Right. We don't reveal any of that up front because we don't want to put the client at risk. So we might contact somebody and say, we have a client in the home furnishing space. They're interested in doing a link, and we've got this article that we found on your site. We'd like to work in some content. Much of the time, we don't even mention money, but they come back. A lot of these bloggers, they come back asking for it. Say, yeah, we'd be happy to do that, but it's going to be $5,000.
Okay.
And so I say, we have $150, and they say, okay. Because they'll take the money, 9 times out of 10, but a lot of them start big.
Okay.
But, once people have agreed, they say that sounds like a good deal, then we will say, here's the client, here's the exact content change we'd like.
Okay. Is there any websites you would feel just shouldn't be doing link buying at all? Or is there a right fit for link buying?
I think that depends on how you do it. I don't generally take people who they say, we've just invested our life savings into this business and we want you to buy 30 links. and they don't have any links, so I would say no.
Okay.
So for a lot of the clients that are smaller, or I think it might be riskier, we might just do one link.
That makes sense. It's a smaller scale. Yeah, I think we have a mix of like medium or large size clients, some more nationally known brands.
Right.
For in those contexts, you mentioned like risk and outing. And there are some situations in the past, for maybe people are aware, where some bigger brands got outed
Yes.
for buying links. And I feel in those contexts, the risk reward of even like 3 of those could, if a client got outed, would be disastrous. You
Right.
get fired for
Right.
1 as an agency. 2, you could get penalized if someone gets the wrong site gets it, and that ends up happening. So that's one reason we avoid it. I'm not like religiously against link buying, but that's, I think, a reason for us why it just doesn't fit in the process. And also, I do think it does make me nervous to do it at any kind of scale. Also, as we've grown as an agency and training new people, I imagine both of you could easily place a paid link and not have it smell like a paid link
Right.
to a Google engineer pretty well. But I don't know if you would agree that that's kind of hard to train 40 people to do potentially
and
without
that's
risk.
Right. That's
Yeah.
why I never trained my team on SEO, because I didn't
Okay.
want them to really think about things in those terms. They just really function as like a human user.
Okay, that makes sense. Garrett, I know on the sponsorship side, there's like another form of paid link building, which maybe it doesn't feel as risky to me, is the idea of like local
It hasn't been
sponsorship.
officially penalized. It doesn't mean it never will be.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Just the idea of local sponsorships, or maybe there's also national sponsorships in there, and
Sure.
of things like
There's a few ways to slice a
5Ks
campaign like
and-
that. Yeah,
yeah.
you could go mission-based. We call it mission-based. So if you wanted to go in the wellness, you could look across the United States and find lots of wellness-related events and build some links that way. And then local is the primary driver of why people look for sponsorship link building. But I will say one of the primary benefits of the event, or of the sponsorship rather, is the event itself and actually going to the event. We've seen a recent influx in interest from prospects. We haven't closed a whole bunch of them, but we've seen an influx of interest in people who are actually going to set up an event and drive leads from a hyperlocal event. And we see it as a potential marketing channel, like outdoor or print. I think it's an important place for some brands to be.
Okay.
Right? And what we've seen is that there are actually some very large, expansive brands who are actively at events consistently introducing their products and services. So it's happening now already. We kind of came in the link door, and then we're discovering this
extra value.
Perhaps even a greater value. I don't know, but
Sure, case by case, bro.
Yeah. But it's been an interesting space to work, and it's the atmosphere is thin, profitability wise, but it's been neat to explore and kind of try and establish a working business model within that.
What it is, on that note, is there certain ranges with sponsorships? I remember doing a little bit of this in the past, where it was like very often. I think I remember you run in and like minimums would sometimes be like $300 for a sponsorship
Sure.
page. I don't know what is kind of your average range for stuff like that.
Average range is probably around 600. We do see a lot of variability around where our geography, what city are we in. So an average cost of sponsorship in Los Angeles could be closer to $700-800, whereas last we checked, and this is probably 2016, 2017 data, it was closer to $350-400 in Atlanta. So just very, very different costs of link building. I just want to reiterate, this is, the link is kind of the last benefit that any of these organizations really think of as being important to their sponsors. So there's a wide variety of other types of benefits, and the initial engagement that sort of opened my eyes up about this was the client was asking us about email lists a soccer, and they were in the real estate space, and they had a soccer program, a youth soccer program that they had sponsored, and they got great return on the newsletter somehow.
Okay.
I don't know, so there's just all of
ways.
these kinds of sort of fragmented opportunities at the hyperlocal level that I think are commonly passed over. And the links are certainly a reason to go in that door, but there's a lot more out there.
Nice. With those local sponsorships, one concern I would have, and it's probably because they're not abused, but I think with scholarships, I'm sure you've seen with I would think Google's never explicitly come out and said scholarship link building, where you create a scholarship on your site, reach out to get links, even if it's not relevant, is devalued. They've never, probably because they don't want to take money away from schools, I would think.
From students.
Or students, students, but I would think that you could look for in URL or in title scholarship, or it's on edu, devalue links that come from that page.
Sure.
Have you seen anything like that equivalent situation with a sponsorship page? I would think, could they look for that? Is there a clear sense that
absolutely they can look for that. My experience with the local linking space or linking space is that there's very little linking opportunity, or it's sort of a I call it an inch deep and a mile wide. There's a lot of different types of organizations that could potentially link, but there are not very many of them. So you're kind of left with not a lot of places to get linking signals about what is local or what is important locally. So that's what I always tell prospects.
Okay.
Okay. The answer is I don't really know, of course, but at the end of the day, there aren't a lot of places to go to get Austin links or San Diego links or whatever city you're in links, and these organizations that put on events and that are the nonprofits in those areas are intrinsic to these places. They're often the very culture of the city, right? And so they are kind of what the city is made of. I think you can find ways to get on their blog sometimes too. It's not always on a sponsorship page, but I think it would be difficult if I were Google to say, oh, we've got to devalue this swath of linking pages. At the end of the day, they've been giving links to their local sponsors since they started publishing websites.
Okay.
And so it's always been sort of a fundamental stamp on what the local link graph
looks
be.
like.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
It makes sense, but it might not be right.
Yeah.
It's just,
I mean, if the clients are still signing up for it, I'm guessing it's making a dent.
It does.
Clearly local, you mentioned the other ROI pieces as well. So that sure.
It's more expensive. Sponsorships are more expensive. And, like Julie said, if it was their last $10,000, I wouldn't say, absolutely, I'd say AdWords, this is, why are you trying, you're not going to get a return anytime soon. But it should certainly be a layer of your local link presence, and certainly it's an inroad into the community itself if you're actually going to.
That makes sense. So you actually want to do that. Julie, on the link building, link buying side, curious more about your process. If you mentioned you don't ask for money up front, or you don't say that up front.
Not always.
Not always. Sometimes you do. What kind of situation would you or would you not?
We do lots of times in finance, because we found that they're not going to give you a link.
When we do content marketing to bloggers, we actually completely avoid personal finance bloggers.
Because they want money.
You have to find tangential markets.
Too, or the other kind of
they really
we
like
do
money.
Okay with mommy bloggers.
Okay. Well, we're gonna have to talk after this.
But yeah, personal finance is pretty tough. Travel bloggers are also pretty brutal.
Yes, they like money.
Yes, they like money. Any rules you have, qualifying metrics? You're I'm willing to go to 300 for a DAA, or is it PA 50? You're just curious your thought processes on that kind of stuff.
We have actually capped it at 150 for everybody, because every
I
year.
love Julie. That's awesome.
Thank you.
No, it's really that's a phenomenal kind of benchmark.
Yeah,
and
that's
it just
it.
keeps
Because I know I
everything
can get
standardized
links for that. And so across, we always do all these studies on the link costs we've had. I think our average right now is 117.
Okay.
So and it depends on the link builder. We have one guy who will just casually say, I have $15.
Okay.
And people are like, well, yeah, why not?
It's $15.
Yeah, it's like they think, well, this is cool.
Okay.
I'd like to share a story if I can.
Oh, please.
So someone else that is no longer in the link buying space, but was really big in it for a long time, told me this trick he used. When you said the $15, it reminded me of it. But he would, get a response back from a publisher, and they would say, yes, we're open, and it's $500 or $5,000 or whatever. And then he would say, well, I ran your site through our algorithmic tool, and it indicated that your site, a link from your site, was worth $87.53. And then they say, okay, sounds great.
Because that sounds so real.
Right. It sounded
really
so precise. And my understanding was that there was not actually an algorithm.
There's not.
There might have been. Who knows? Probably not. So anyhow, I think there's an opportunity in whatever approach, whatever tactic you're using to kind of switch up the offer.
Right.
What are we offering? And I think experimenting with the actual offer is important.
That's a very good idea.
I thought it was so clever.
That's very clever.
It was my favorite. Yeah. It wasn't my idea.
What happened, or at least this was my experience when I used to buy links, was functionally some people would say, for 6 months you could have it for $80 or what have you.
Oh, right.
How much would you get of that, or is you're always making sure you get a blog post for that?
We try to assume it's going to be a permanent link, so we try not to mention time limits, but lots of times they will say, this is for a year.
Okay.
And then in a year, they'll come back to us and say, do you want to renew this link? But we found that I think maybe 75% of them kind of forget about it, even if they've said they'll be back in a year, and they just leave the link up. So.
Nice. One thing, I'm not recommending this, but this was my process, was I would send an email, said we don't share the site up front. Right. We would say, we can offer $80 for 6 months. With the thought process that, one, you're anchoring them to $80. They can't negotiate and tell you the price, the $5,000 person. Right. If they're going to say something, they'll say, we'll do it for 100, 110. And they're anchored to that. And also the 6-month time frame was similar to what I think you were saying. Hopefully it's 6 months. We found a good percentage of people just forgot about the link.
Right.
I think you need to go back to link buy. That's some smart shit right there.
Really good at it.
It fit. It felt like
we're going to be out of business.
I know. This is probably not a good conversation for me to have, because it's like you just give someone that drug again, and it's not. It's not good. We don't buy any links for any of our clients currently, or future. You never know.
Maybe.
But, so Garrett, one thing you mentioned that in a conversation earlier that I thought was interesting that I hadn't heard talked about was the idea of kind of like citable elements of a category page link, and potentially how that can be leveraged as a more effective way to get links to those pages than just pitching a straight cold San Diego real estate page. Could you speak to that?
Sure. Yeah, so we work a lot, and we don't buy links on the Citation Lab side. We do essentially buy them on the ZipSprout side in the form of sponsorships, but on the Citation Lab side, we don't. We earn our way in, but we do a lot of money page link building, and to do that effectively, we advise on citable elements. We recommend that there be something on the page that is we can jump to, that is going to, that's a data point or a bit of advice or information for the buyer. First and foremost, it needs to serve the visitor to that page. It needs to be a part of the buy cycle, ideally, right? Or at least not feel out of place within the context of purchasing something. And then it needs to have a jump link to it, and then that element itself becomes something that is what we call justifiably citable in a guest placement. So we're looking, a lot of what we see as being very justifiably citable is things like pricing information, better ways to accomplish a task with this specific product or service that perhaps are lesser known, and even better if we have some kind of data point to back that up. So let me think of an example that won't give any clients away. Let's see. I talked with Morty Oberstein, is that how you say his last name? From Rank Ranger?
Doesn't ring.
Okay,
no,
well,
unfortunately.
Just remove that whole part, please. Talking with a wonderful, I was on a podcast recently talking about how would we build links to a gas station. So this is kind of fun, and right? How do you build links to a gas station? Well, the gas station in theory would know when they are the busiest. right? So maybe they have data chips on their some things, and they know when there's the most customers at their gas station, which would make that the worst time to buy gas at that particular gas station, and perhaps in that part of the city. So you can then flip it around and see when there's the fewest customers, and probably you'd want to cheat your data towards, daylight hours or the fewest customers at times when people are actually awake and likely to be out and about. And then you could say, for this particular gas station's page, we're talking about like Citgo, how would you build links for all their pages? So then you could add that element onto the page, like, the best time to get gas at this gas station is, Thursdays at 1:30 p.m. Now, who's going to cite that? Right, so that's the next. So when you're designing these citable elements, you have to be thinking about the potential publishers, and this is a case where we have where I would imagine perhaps if there's a local festival, some of the drivers around here that I've been driving with the past couple of days, that they've all mentioned South by Southwest. It must have quite an impact on the local culture. So they were very, kind of talking about how busy and how dense the traffic was. And so if you had a travel guide for somebody and you were placing it on a travel website who didn't ask you for $5,000, you could cite the best time. You're going to need gas while you're in Austin. You're going to have to fill up, but it's slammed. It's super busy. Everybody's, at here for South by Southwest. So the best time to go to these different gas stations are these times. Now, it's a little extreme. I don't see a lot of people necessarily planning their trip to the gas station around the best time to go, when there's the least amount of customers. But just believe me, that's a really good idea. No,
I would plan it that way.
And actually, my wife would too. She's very well organized, thank goodness.
Yeah, I like the idea. I think it has application in multiple different processes. Like in our context, we're often pitching content that's hosted on our client's site. So one of the things we try to do to get those category page links for our clients is work in, if we're pitching something that's related to their category, which hopefully we do a high percentage of the time because it's in context, we can include a link to that like 30 to 40%-ish of the time. Because one, we do have a process where we lower friction by saying we'll write a custom intro for them. So in those situations, which I think is similar to you, where you do a guest post, we could have a reason to cite something. So I think of, we have an auction client, and there's like a baseball card prices page or a blog post that we might pitch. And then maybe there's a Mickey Mantle baseball card auction and they have price history for Mickey Mantle. You could link to that Mickey Mantle price history on that category page link, but out of context, it'd just be like Mickey Mantle. That just would be a little weirder of a citation, but now you've given them the reason to kind of make that
connect
reference.
The dots. Yeah. And in a useful context for the reader on this offsite publisher. And that's one of the things that's always impressed me about Julie. What her team does really effectively is look for we call it just citation justification, but looking for how do we genuinely defend this link. How do we make it blend? How do we make it serve the reader, essentially? And so data points like the price history of a Mickey Mantle card, in the right context, of course, would be a fantastic reason to link to that particular page, in my opinion.
Yeah. What are other ways you do that, make it justifiable?
Well, we try our best, but honestly, when you're giving people money, it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
They'll link to whatever you want them to link to.
Okay.
But we do try, when we put our link in, we do try to add a paragraph or two just to make things flow.
Okay. So is your situation, you're not adding a guest post, are you going to someone and saying, looking at their site and finding whatever that maybe the highest page authority pages or most relevant, or like what does that look
We'll
like
just
technically?
I basically just do a site colon search for whatever the main keyword is and just start looking through where they've written about those articles. And I don't really care if it's the most authoritative. I just want the one that's not completely spammed up with tons of links that are very obvious.
Okay.
One that just makes sense.
So in today's world, for our clients, we're very often just getting branded anchor text because that's a context of our work. And definitely when I was doing a lot of link buying, I was way more aggressive about getting Mickey Mantle card.
Right.
What's your thought process there today, or what's working for your clients?
Well, I like to ask the webmaster how they would do it. Just say, here's the target page. But some clients do insist on the keywords.
They probably give you like certain breakdowns and stuff like that.
But a lot of them don't. They don't like they used to. Some would say, I want 40 links and it needs to be, these 3 words. A lot of them now like it when we vary it. So, it's not exact match, and we work in brands, URLs, things like that.
Okay. Garrett, I'd be remiss to not bring this up. I feel like you're the... And I don't even
that sounds bad.
I don't know if our team knows.
I didn't do it.
They
It
should know
wasn't me,
this.
actually.
But I feel like you're the... Mecca is the word that comes up, but that's not the right word. But the Godfather, that's a good word for broken link building.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Well,
I feel like you're in the industry probably most well-known and respected for that specifically. So to the extent that you feel comfortable revealing, I'd love to hear. Obviously, I know about Link Prospector, which I highly recommend people check out. I've shared your article of like the many different linkable audiences, which I share with our team and we leverage very frequently. But in practice, like, how does Citation Labs do broken link building?
So we've actually, as an agency, stepped away a bit from broken link building, and even from pitching it. I don't pitch it as frequently because folks who are coming in the door right now at Citation Labs are primarily looking for sales page links. Or when I tell them that we can do that, then they're like, "Oh, okay, I would like that actually." But it remains a really productive method for finding the spaces we want links in. And this is painful for many SEOs, but the spaces where the topic areas that you want links don't have a representative body of content that's been around long enough to have died off, earned links and then died off. Where we do see a lot of broken link opportunity is in areas of human health. So in the drug addiction space, we had a client in 2011, 2012, and it was pretty much all we did for them was broken link building, and it was phenomenal. I mean, there was lots of content is written about drug addiction, and then it dies, and you can make that request, and you can request that the publisher change their link to something that is on your client's site. But a few things happened. One is when we compared return against just pure link requesting for links and resource pages, it wasn't always better for us. And then there was always an expectation.
Better than the kind of guest posting approach?
No, I'm sorry. Better than just link begging on links and resource pages. Yeah. So it really was more of we tried to use it as a door opener into onto a specific page, right? Like so we in the email to the webmaster, it's like, hey, you've got this great page. It's really useful, but there's this link that's broken. Here's something that could replace it.
So you're removing that first part. You're not even doing broken link building anymore.
No, I mean,
but you're still requesting it.
Absolutely.
On link pages.
But we'll typically pitch multiple suggestions so that we appear altruistic and not like we're just trying to get a link for a client. And then, genuinely useful suggestions. But what frequently happened, or I think what happened is as we got bigger, it became less and less effective of a tactic because it just didn't scale as well. And then there's a lot of audience or prospect expectation that whatever they were in, payday loans, that there was going to be a ton of broken link opportunities that we could just go and kind of mine for them. And so, very frequently we'd have to come up with a topic that was somewhat related to the, whatever the topic of the client was. And then you end up with these jumps away from like, it's just jarring. It's jarring from a brand perspective, or it would be potentially jarring to a customer on the site. It just doesn't make sense for some of this content to be there. And I see less comfort with that in the marketplace in the past few years. So it's still, I think it's a phenomenal approach to link building. It's fundamental. It begins with what already had links, right? It's smart. It's but it's not as effective for what we call money pages, or I like to call them sales pages, but everybody corrects me.
So one thing that I think is interesting, or the way you're thinking about that, I know you had a tool. What was it called, where you could like put a keyword in, you'd find something that had 400 links that was dead?
The Broken Link Builder. Yeah,
that was
brokenlinkbuilder.com was the
so
building.
I think very often in our process, we definitely, when we do it, we don't always do it. It's more like we create whatever content we think can acquire links. That's one thing in the kind of quiver of things we do, is just frequently just align it to a market. But it sounds like the way you're talking about, you start with the assets that it's already dead and then do it. Is that fair to say?
Actually,
no?
Thank you for, that's a great question. We would more likely start with a topic that we think there's going to be content that could actually have acquired these wonderful links from old library pages and city websites or .orgs, and work that way. So it really, you have to be a lot more topically. It's like the linker valued audiences that we wrote about. That's kind of the core thing, is if there's not a linker valued audience behind your topic, or if you're not aligned enough with it, you're not going to find anything to build an effective broken link building campaign around. Now, one thing we are exploring tool-wise is to pick a broad category and then kind of continually mine for things that break and that have links. So that's probably 2020. It's a long ways out, but I think where broken link building should live consistently is in-house. It should be an in-house thing, and one person's job for maybe a week, a month, is to just check and see, is anything broken? If so, what can we do to try and get these links? And it's where you're just kind of monitoring a topic area really, really closely.
Okay.
And so I don't see, like, just for us, it's been tough to really scale from a process, or from a deliverability perspective. It's not as reliable of a link generator on a month-to-month basis.
Yeah, it works for us. We do it definitely as a quiver, and I think it would make sense if that was literally the only tactic we did. Probably would not. You'd probably run into that.
Just run out of.
We're finding success of like not jumping hoops just to fit in like the disability market or scene. It has to make sense for the client.
Yeah.
In context. So I mean, as veterans here of link building, I'm just curious for you, Julie. Is there anything you're doing different now that you didn't do 10 years ago?
Not really.
Like what?
It's almost, I mean, it really
feels
is
similar.
It feels very similar, but I think we've gotten smarter about the sites.
Okay. Is there any difference in how publishers are responding to you at all?
I think they're more agreeable.
Really?
Really. And it could be the clients.
I wonder if there's less people pitching them now.
That could be. And a lot of these guys are mid-level bloggers.
Okay.
We don't really have people getting crazy. Like they would say, we're going to report you to Google. You're ruining the internet. We got a lot of that.
Which you are. No, you're not.
I really. So, I mean, mostly it is. Yeah, it's mostly the same.
Okay.
I think we just kind of tightened up on what we think is a good page for a
good
link.
link, just to be more discretionary.
Right, but we're not. We haven't. Sadly, we're not more efficient.
Okay.
We don't have any great new ways of doing anything. We just kind of seems to
still
work.
works.
So we've kept everything the same.
Okay. If your client isn't requesting certain links, like what is your process? Do you say you should do homepage 30% of the time, category page link 20%? Like, do you do any of that kind of stuff?
No, I don't really. Much of the time they will tell me kind of what they want, and lots of times it's the money pages. But I have a good new client who says, we have anything here, you're welcome to link to it.
Okay.
So that's been really fun. So if I find something that's a great site that I think is relevant to their industry, then I can just kind of dig through and figure out what works.
Okay.
So it's nice to have that freedom.
Cool. So how about you, Garrett? Like, I mean, I guess we just touched on some of the things that changed for you in terms of your process, but is there anything you feel like is not working anymore otherwise, or things that have changed in 10 years?
I think we've kind of gotten lapped a little bit on the links and resource page side with some other more recent practitioners, like a John Cooper can run circles around us, I think, on the what we call LNR, links and resource page side, where you're just getting link begging for a piece of topical content, long form, that would fit genuinely on someone's well-curated resource list, right? So I just, a lot of that stuff, I've seen less and less interest from the market. And so we just haven't really tried to crank up on efficiencies in these for those. I say that, but there's still definitely demand for that type of link, and I think it still does provide a lot of value, but it doesn't give the precision kind of ranking impact that we see with links to money pages.
That's what's changed, I guess, is a good way to wrap this up. I don't know if we have crystal balls, but I just read Stone Temple's new study. It sounds like correlation for links is only going up, but you see anything changing in 5 to 10 years? Like, where do you see things going from a link building perspective, or where are you moving towards? Or are we good and should be good for a long time?
I kind of think we're good. I mean, I guess I feel that way because we've done this for 12 years and it's worked.
Still.
Right.
Okay.
So I'm kind of scared to change anything.
Okay. That makes sense.
I don't know. I worry about it, Ross. I mean, all we do is build links. So, I worry that Google's going to find a new way to better understand value or importance of websites and pages. But I think there is a lot of fragmentation around their understanding, or maybe sophistication around their understanding of importance and value. And so I think probably link building is going to have to veer that way a little bit around, are we going to build links to this page, or are we going to build links that promote this specific author on this website, right? So what kinds of values can we be building? What signals is Google really taking from the link? And then could that signal be more effective if it was used on some other aspect that we believe Google might be tracking or watching? Which that's the very thing that I know the very least about. So I'm just definitely speculating. But I'm a process person, so just get the link. I hope that keeps working.
Yeah, I think and I don't know, maybe you've seen any changes around relevancy, but that's the thing I hone in on and feel anytime we even slightly jump out a market that feels slightly weird or where their customer is not at, that's where I get nervous about the value of the link or the sustainability of the link for the long term.
Sure.
But if we're consistently where their audience is, and also for us, we're trying to build top middle funnel search volume driven assets too, while generating links. Hopefully that will stand the test of time. And in a perfect world, hopefully Ahrefs and DuckDuckGo just disrupt Google, and then links will be a thing.
It's a 5-year window for Google basically before DuckDuckGo just.
You think so?
No.
But
I love them. I think they're wonderful. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised like someone like DuckDuckGo is not like advertising somewhere. That's almost a different subject, but I want to see them on the Super Bowl or something.
Let's do it. Let's put money.
You're gonna put money into that?
Half and half.
Nice. 10%, 90? No.
Not this year.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. I really appreciate your advice and experience. Clearly, you've got a wealth of knowledge on these different topics that we haven't seen explained in the way they are. And sure, a lot of people are going to be buying links now. That's the takeaway from this. So thanks for coming, guys.
Thank
you.
Thank you very much.
You guys have been a wonderful audience. Thank you.
No heckling?